Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And we are coming at you with a super fun video episode if you're watching us on YouTube, where we are going to talk about Marvel Zombies. Also, just want to say thank you for your patience. I know this is a little later than we typically do it, but we had a little bit of a fun but busy week last week, so had to delay this reaction. But we are here now. Super excited to talk about it. I know we both really enjoyed the experience. So, as always, I'm going to let Katie take the first at bat.
Yeah, I also just want to add, we didn't completely forget about Marvel Zombies. We did react to each episode individually on our socials. So if you would like to see our super raw reactions to each episode as we were watching them, you can go see those on Instagram, YouTube, everywhere else. TikTok. Yeah, I was like, the other platforms we're on. But yeah, go and check those out if you're interested in seeing our super raw reactions, because we did make sure we were doing those, even though we had like the craziest 4-day weekend ever. But, I have to say this was probably one of my most anticipated projects of this year that wasn't a movie, because obviously I think movie wise, it was a hit out of the park of just like what was coming out. I think were very exciting projects. And I wouldn't say I was disappointed in it. I would say I enjoyed it for the most part, but I don't know if I love the full direction they went with it. Um, Mainly because I think there's so many avenues we could have gone down that maybe showcased more heroes. And I actually don't think making it surround one character was the move I think should have happened in this show. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I love Kamala. She's great, but I don't think it was like whatever that interaction with her and Scarlet Witch, and like whatever that relationship is and is going to foster into. That was not my vibe, if you will.
Interesting. I can see that. I think the biggest takeaway for me, like if you watch my immediate reaction videos, you'll see I really liked it. And I did. Like that first kind of initial, you finish the episode, each time you're like, that was really fun. I think I struggled with maybe the third one, because that second one to me was so good. And then like the third one maybe fell off a little. But overall, I really liked the show initially. I think as I've had time to kind of ruminate on it, and this is the good thing about kind of doing them like immediate and then later,
Yeah.
is I it wasn't what I expected, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. And like I
Same.
did like some of it, and there were a lot of shocking moments, like when they were like killing heroes left and right. And I'm not talking like zombifying them, like actually like murdering Yelena, murdering Melina, like all that, like that was happening. It was very shocking. But then it also like very Kate and Riri in the first episode. I mean, I was like freaking out. I guess to your point, and I wasn't able to really like verbalize until you said your thoughts. We didn't get a lot of time with those characters. Like, and it wasn't even that we got to like see how their powers would manifest as zombies, or like their skill set would manifest as zombies either, which is a different way to show the character, but a cool way as
Yeah.
well. Instead, they were just like dead gone by. And it was like, oh, like bye character. Like we could have seen more of that, or like see how they relate to Kamala. There were just maybe some missed opportunities with some of the newer characters, especially.
Yeah, I think and actually, you know what I will say, the context for that complaint actually came out of, I haven't watched it all the way through, but I started to and I should have done it before, because I know I told all y'all to do it before and I totally didn't. I did not watch the What If episode that
Me
ties into
either.
this
It
before.
didn't occur to
Okay.
me till halfway through the first episode. I was like, oh no.
Me too. And because we had to like pump out our reactions, I was like, okay, whatever, we just gotta go. Like, I was like, we don't have the time for this. We've already started watching it. Let's just move, like, whatever. I did start rewatching it, and I think that was what allowed me to really pinpoint why I didn't love how this went, because that episode to me did not it didn't directly involve one character. and it wasn't following just one character. And actually, I think had they not killed off Kate and Riri, now, mind you, I didn't mind because it was the shock factor. And I think they said from the jump, like, we're not going to mess around. Like, people are going to die in this. And I liked that. But I think had you not following that group, I don't know if I would have felt this way. But I think following Kamala only in comparison to the What If episode where you're following that group, I think that is so much, and that makes so much more sense to me than how they decide to go about it, and it just be Kamala kind of picking up and losing heroes as she goes, because by the end I was like, wow, she's just been so shuffled around that, like, how did we even fully get here? I mean, we lost the entire Black Widow family in the process. Like,
Yeah.
I think I just struggled a little bit because and because I think there will be a season 2, they didn't explain the relationship fully between Kamala and the Scarlet Witch and why that is happening the way that is happening. And I think that left me also like, I don't feel that we had a full payout because the full of, or all 4 full episodes were about Kamala, really, if we want to say that, like, if we want to break it down, that's the truth. And then I never understood why. And that I struggled with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair critique. I think that was the thing where, like, at the end of the 4th episode, I was like, I'm excited to know why. Like, why
Right.
Kamala? Why is she, for lack of better term, like the chosen one, right? What makes her special in the eyes of the Scarlet Witch? Especially, like, I was going to say, is it because she's a mutant? But then you had Namor, and he's also a mutant.
Right.
So, like, that doesn't, she's not the only one, besides the Scarlet Witch in the universe. So yeah, I don't know, and I think I don't even necessarily have any specific theories as to why it's Kamala, because I just they those two characters seem so far removed from each other, and I know they're not. I mean, obviously we have why am I blanking on her name? Monica, who connects the two almost directly. So they're like 2 degrees apart. But their vibes and their like areas in the MCU where they live are so different that like it's hard. And I know this is in the MCU but a whole different universe, but like we spend all of our time on 616. So like from that perspective even I'm like I don't even understand why like that would happen, or what about Kamal's powers makes her special. And you're right. I think not knowing that piece and not even being able to reveal that throughout the season, or even as like the crazy twist at the end of the 4th episode, I think kind of hollows out the season as a whole. And if
Yeah.
you had been able to at least give that little bit of, oh, I see now, oh, that's so shocking, then you can talk about, okay, like, what does that mean? And how did that happen? Like, there are other things you could talk about. You're not completely curtailing conversation and theories and all of that. But at the same time, you're not sitting there going, I don't understand why Kamala. And that's, I think, like the prevailing feeling here coming out of what I think is a season 1.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, Kamala's having these visions, right? And so, like, that alone, I think, is supposed to be the understanding of she's having these visions, therefore, she is connected somehow with the Scarlet Witch and whatever. This is why. But the problem for me then is like, but why is she having the visions?
Right.
And like, that's not explained. Because because to exactly what you just said, I think if they explained why she was having these visions, hey, by process of like moving through the whole thing, I understand, then that's what makes her special. I don't need you to directly have the Scarlet Witch be like, you're special because of XYZ. Like, I need to know why she's having the visions, and therefore that allows me to understand the rest of the story. So I do feel like I lose it there. I also, somebody pointed this out, and unfortunately, I can never unknow this now, which in retrospect, made me feel more bothered by this show. This was taking place at Infinity War time frame. So why were Riri,
Oh.
Kate, and Kamala your main ones to start? Like,
Well,
all of that to me really gets thrown off when somebody pointed that out. And I can't believe I didn't think about it, because the fact they literally have zombie Thanos come with the stones. But that bothers the crap out of me.
Yeah, I guess two things to that. One, like that scene with Spider-Man and Black Panther, that's a flashback. So I guess what I'm saying is like we don't exactly know how long this zombie plague has been going on and how long ago that happened.
Well, we do to a degree. We know it's. I believe they even say it's the 5-year time jump. I do think that, but when they are talking, they have been living through it as heroes during that time.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have clarified. Like, we're not just jumping right off the band of like 2018, but they have been heroes throughout all of this, which is where I'm lost because I'm like, how did that? Okay, this is the problem with what ifs. I'm going to be honest. I don't like things. This is where I get like Taylor, where she doesn't like things that don't quite line up. I get like this during what if types of scenarios because I'm like, I understand they're what if scenarios, but you can't just say, oh, because this was different. No, like you have to think this all through. Same with, I'm sorry, but how did Captain Marvel become a zombie?
No, for real though.
Like, that bothered me.
But the
like,
crazy thing though was like someone pointed out, like Icarus is literally out here saving the universe by keeping her like
at bay.
yeah, because
Yeah.
someone was like she could absolutely obliterate the Nova Corps, which I
Yeah.
definitely want to talk about that cuz wild. But like she could absolutely get through their blockade no problem and that zombie infection would be all over the universe. So the fact that he's just like sitting there literally matching her blow for blow just to keep her distracted is kind of like what a sacrifice because
Yeah.
the thing was it Friday? I think it was Friday who was the AI at
Mhm.
the time was like, "Oh yeah, he's inorganic." So like he can't become a
Die.
zombie because he
Yeah.
doesn't have like the living cells to do that.
Yeah.
So he's just out here actively choosing to fight her over and over and over again,
Yeah.
never able to fully vanquish her, which is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and I thought I was so happy because they recorded this such a long time ago that it was when they still cared that they had the Eternals, which was
I
really nice.
know.
Because I really was sitting there like, thank you for remembering you had them and for bringing them into existence in this, even if it is just Icarus. Like, I'm glad we're remembering to have them here. But like I was saying, though, there's a lot of continuity issues I'm having with where they took the what if. And I think maybe some of it comes down to them having the time jump because we didn't have that in the what if episode. We saw like when Thanos or zombie Thanos, which also now that I think about it in general, also doesn't quite make sense how he became a zombie. But
Yeah, because he wouldn't have come to the universe.
he wasn't on
wouldn't have
Earth
come to
before
Earth.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I
Unless
digress.
someone who brought him the stone was a zombie. Like one of the children.
Fair, but then I guess I'm like bothered by like because then they point out in this how his zombie brain was making it hard for him to understand how to use the stones properly. So I would have been like, how did zombie brain Thanos be like, I must get to Earth to get the other stones?
Dude, I don't know. They
This
didn't
is my
think this
point
through.
though. Like, this is where I get bothered and I start to overthink. And I think since I watched it, like I feel like watching it initially, I was like, I love this and I'm really digging this. Other than I didn't like the ending that much and like whatever. But then as I've been like sitting in it and I've been sitting with other fans and we've all just been sharing theories and things and people have just pointed stuff out, whatever. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like this is starting to make less and less sense. Like I don't really know how we got here.
I think at the root of it is like they truly have lost the plot of their own premise in the sense that like the what if moment is supposed to be one singular change that then has a cascading effect on the universe, right?
Yeah.
They did that to some level of success in season 1. Thank God this isn't an offshoot of season 2 or 3 because that's just like completely no man's land out there. Like wild west in terms of understanding the rules. But at least we had somewhat of a foundation because I don't think that the what and this is me completely trying to remember something from 4 years ago, but I think the what if moment itself, and since you've at least started it, you can speak to this a little better, is relatively clear, right? Like it's one thing that changed and then started a zombie apocalypse. But like they don't understand that like that should be everything should draw back linearly from that moment. They think that
Exactly.
once the what if moment happens, everything is like completely able to be rewritten, which like to some extent, yes, like things are going to change and they're going to snowball, obviously. But at the same time, you can't just completely throw everything out the window. Like it has to all in some way map back. And especially if you're going to change the focal point to three heroes who are not introduced until much later, much after, to what you were saying, Infinity War and all of that, you need to at least put in a one liner that says, this is how this happened. This is how we became heroes. This is how we met each other. Like, there's just a lot of filling in the gaps that you're expecting the audience to do. One, over a time jump, and two, over a time jump in a universe that they've spent 23 minutes in ever. Ever. It's a lot
Yeah.
to ask your audience to do.
Well, my thing is they probably felt pretty obligated to do the time jump because otherwise they couldn't really use any of the phase 4 through 6 characters.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think the problem with that is the initial change happens around Infinity War time. And therefore, we technically should have seen a snap. We technically should have seen a blip. But then that doesn't happen. But that completely affects all the characters we've seen in phases 4 through 6 and why they do a lot of what they do and how they are the way they are, whether they've lived their life this way or were snapped or whatever. That affects every single one of them. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
So I think I also struggle because especially the 3 that they showed, if we really want to think about this, like if you subtract 6 years from their life, like
they were 12. They were babies.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and again, some of the reasons some of these like Kate's origin kind of goes back to the original Avengers, so she has a little bit more of that leeway, but let's not forget she kind of gets in with Hawkeye because of the whole Ronin thing.
Yeah.
That never happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's stuff like that where I'm like, but this just, and that's exactly to your point. Like when you sit here and you start with one thing, you have to trace back. And I think, like, would Kate have ever become what she became a hero? I don't know. What about Kamala? Who sent her the bangle? Because she says her grandma did, but like, when? In the middle of the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah.
Or have you been a hero since you were 12? Like, that's all the stuff that, like, I struggle with, and I kind of wish, while I know they wanted to include these characters, they would have just stuck with who they knew, because otherwise this felt a little messy. That doesn't mean there weren't great moments. Like I said, like episode by episode, if I just like take a step back and don't let myself get too in the weeds, I was enjoying it. I would actually say my bigger complaint was, what was he being called? Infinity Hulk? Was that what he was being called?
I kind of liked him. I thought he was interesting.
I didn't really understand him.
I didn't either. That was one of those things that just was like face value. You know what I liked about the Hulk? You can go back to my reaction videos. He's pretty. Like, he's so colorful. And like every time he was on the screen, my eyes were like, we're so enjoying this image. And like
a rain bro has like thrown up on my screen.
No, but like it wasn't like an aggressive, like overly bright. Like it was the jewel tones really just, they bring me a lot of peace, and they like jewel toned it all. And like something about that, and like in the contrast to the Hulk like green, it just, and like they were the use of shadows.
It was very well done. Yes.
I was vibing with the colors.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I don't understand why. I don't understand how. All I know is my eyes like this.
You know, that's a great summary of it, because quite frankly, I also was like, this is pretty. But the whole episode, my brain was like, but I don't get it. Because how?
I think the only thing that I can think of is like the whole reason that Hulk snaps to basically bring the blip on is because he says in Infinity War, and thank God we just did the replay, because I would never have been able to pull this out if we hadn't. But he literally says, like, I've looked at the radiation. It's mostly gamma. It should be me. Nobody does gamma better than me. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's the gist of it. So that would be my best guess as to why he was the one chosen to, like, anchor. Do I understand what the actual act of anchoring means?
Well,
No,
that's
I do
what
not.
I want to talk about, because that's actually where they lose me. Him being selected wasn't where they lost me. I was like, whatever, okay. Science, justification, whatever. What I didn't get was, okay, y'all know I will root for my girl Wanda at all times, but not in this one. In this one, I was like, knock her down. Like,
she was maniacal.
She was, and she was a little nutcase, and I was like, okay, you know what really broke me was the zombie feast. I was sitting there, I was like, covering my mouth,
horrible,
traumatized.
When they were there in, like, Cave Asgard, I was like, oh, interesting. First of all, that was just like, oh, I don't even understand. I mean, the idea of the Asgardians hiding from a fight felt very antithetical to who they are as a people. So I actually kind of took umbrage with it a little bit, but at the same time, I was like, Asgard, it's so cool that they, like, have these, like, secret hideouts on Earth, because y'all know how much I love Asgard as a place. But the other thing was, like, when she rolled up onto the screen, I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh my God. The first thing I thought of was the scene in Nowhere from Infinity War when they're looking for the Collector, and all I could think was, she's a, like, walking reality stone. And I knew. I was like, she got him. She got them all.
So the thing was I was not anticipating the feast part of it, but I was I was like, she's faking it.
Yeah.
But then I didn't think about, like, I was like, what's the tactic here? And then when they revealed the feast, because my brain never went there. I was like,
when they were like, she brought the food, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
She truly Trojan horsed you so hard.
And here's the thing. This is kind of the point, right? Like, if she would have been this tactful and well written in MOM, I might not have been rooting for her.
They never would have stood a chance.
Right.
Ever.
But you wrote her so poorly that I still was out here like, we love you, Mommy Wanda. Like, I literally don't care. So but this was the first time I really was like, seriously, somebody put her in the ground.
Yeah.
Like she's stressing me
scary.
Out. Yeah. And I think to wrap this into the whole thing with Infinity Hulk, where I was getting lost, was, why was he needing protection when he had the power of all 6 stones?
I was so confused by that. I was like,
okay, not just me.
No, it made no sense. I was just, at that point, I was just there for the vibes. I was like, all right,
for real.
I was
really?
like, none of this makes sense. Because if you think about Thanos with all 6, that man took a Stormbreaker to the chest, looked Thor in the face and said, babe, you should have gone for the head, and snapped anyway. And then
he did it as a zombie. He did it as a zombie and he still lived.
Well, I mean, as a zombie, that makes sense. You really can't feel pain. But
I mean, like, it didn't kill him.
Again, like, you can't. To kill a zombie, you have to take off the head. They can't. It's not like you take off an arm or you hit them in the chest and you impale them. They feel pain. Like, that's why they were all beheading them or, like, cutting them into many pieces.
I guess that theoretically makes sense, but still,
I hear what you're saying. My point is, any being with the 6 Infinity Stones is undoubtedly the most powerful being in the universe. So I don't understand, to your point, why we had to protect the Hulk when the Hulk should have very well been able to protect himself. I understand that we were throwing some extremely powerful individuals. I'm thinking about Thor specifically because he did some real damage to the Hulk in their fight. But I'm sorry, we've seen Thor against 6 Infinity Stones and he lost. And I don't say that lightly because I feel terrible for him in that moment and then for what happens after, but it is the truth. Like, we know, and that was a full-powered, alive Thor. And you can't tell me he's at his best when he's a zombie.
Well, I think where I was getting lost with it, which, yes, I agree, but I also was like, why can't he just, like, vaporize them all? Like, is that a dumb question? But the whole time I sat there, I was like, why can't he do that? He literally has so much power anchored to him right now. And I guess the only argument I could kind of understand is he is solely meant to be an anchor and that is it. But
weak. That's a weak. If that's what they're using,
it is weak.
That's
I don't
weak.
think it's right. But I guess like I could understand that kind of being the thought process of like he's only an anchor and therefore like he's keeping it sustained. But then I was like, but then just like don't keep it sustained. Like I just because clearly the power can be stolen. That was Wanda's whole plan was to take that power. So again, I just sat there and I was like, why can't he just kind of do one up, and just like literally annihilate them all? I just don't understand why. Like, and again, maybe that's not me understanding the premise and not understanding the rules around the situation. But when you only have 35 minutes to understand rules that aren't really fully explained to you, you kind of just have to make understanding of what you have. And to me, I didn't understand why he couldn't have single-handedly taken out the entire zombie army and Wanda and Thor.
Yeah, it was very what's the word? Flimsy, I think.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. And I think it also like I'm going to go back to my original, hey, I don't know how I feel about this upon further review moment. Did I think that Marvel Zombies was going to lead to an Infinity Hulk and a battle for like essentially the soul of Kamala Khan to have the power of the 6 Infinity Stones? No. How did we get from point A to point B? And it's kind of annoying because, like, in the end, the zombie apocalypse was literally just a numbers game for Wanda. She was just trying to spread the plague to get to some. I don't know how everybody knew she has enough now. Like, how did we make that determination? I don't know. That was flimsy as well. Like,
she's got a mathematician zombie out there doing it for her.
I mean, why not? I would steal all the brains. Zombie joke. I would steal all the brains of the people who I would be controlling and use their skills to my advantage too. Like, what do they say? Use the tools that are available to you. And she has a tool of every kind and every skill because basically 99% of the world was zombies. So,
yeah,
you know what? You can't blame her on that front. She's just using her resources.
I think yes, but I do think something else too, though, that now that you kind of pointed that out. Well, first, I have to say before I forget this, how did Neymar's people become zombies? How does that even happen?
Girl,
bothered
I don't
me.
know. I don't know. They do not, that their whole thing is they do not have contact with the outside world.
So how does that happen? I literally don't understand. That really was an aggravated moment for me. But when you're talking about like Wanda and all that, actually what you made me remember too, or what you jostled that I wanted to talk about was when you were also saying how we got from point A to point B. I really liked that in the original, like in the What If episode, they were not conscious. They were zombies. They weren't smart zombies. They were zombies. And her only intention was to feed. I understand they were trying to make it like an all stakes kind of game, which I don't know why. We've watched about 1 million zombie apocalypse movies not even just us, like as a society.
Yeah.
There's a whole show about The Walking Dead. Like
hello, The Last of Us.
Yeah, but that's a little different. I'm talking like zombie specific.
I mean,
because no, they're not zombies. They're different types of zombies. These are like I'm talking zombie like eat brain zombie.
Never watched The Last of Us.
I've seen enough clips. I'm not talking about like the whole spore thing. I'm talking about zombie Walking Dead zombies.
Whatever. Continue.
Like, when you think about a zombie, I'm not thinking about the freaking clickers and crap. Like you think zombie. So I really enjoyed the whole like she just wanted to feed and that's why she was such a threat and like all that stuff. And I didn't really need the random high stakes of it because again, we've watched so much content over the years and made so much content that's just like zombie apocalypse sucks, don't get bitten and like try to live. And also try to beat them eventually to take back society. Yeah. These are the overarching goals. I think Marvel Zombies would have done great if those were just the overarching goals. Like, I don't think we needed to get like in the thick of it. Wanda didn't need to become conscious and like have all this like whatever. We didn't need that. We don't need the whole like I like a little bit the idea of spread it like don't let it spread to the universe, but I feel like
Yeah.
you could have covered that a little bit with Captain Marvel. Like she was a
Agreed.
zombie. We could have covered that aspect. We didn't need this like awakened zombie mind. Like was it Okoye who was like her first in command? Like we didn't need all like that actually kind of bothered me. I was like, no, like the point of zombies is supposed to be like they're cool because they're just trying to feed on you and they're scary for that reason, not because they're like manipulative. Like at this point I just kind of felt like I was like these are just foes. Like they took away from the zombie aspect of it for me because I was like they're too conscious and that's just not fun anymore.
Yeah, like her having that like very clear determined goal was just
Yeah.
like, oh, so this is literally like any movie now, and it just so happens to be that another threat is that if they bite you, you become one of them. But yeah, you're right, you lose kind of the whole like fun is maybe the wrong word, but like what makes a zombie
But that the
apocalypse
stakes of it.
yeah, it's what makes a zombie apocalypse interesting, right? The idea that like these are just a mindless horde and logic doesn't work on them, right? You can't like talk your way out of a zombie attack. You just have to like fight and
Right.
like hope it's going to work out. The other thing that I was going to say about that is lost on me. Darn it. I was like holding
I
on
knew
to
it.
it and I was
I
like I
knew
want
when
to
you
come
took
back
the
to this.
pause.
Darn it. What was it? It was about Wanda. Oh, no, here we are. We're back. It is about the fact that, yet again, we had another piece of media that, even though they tell us that we're done with the Infinity Saga, rehashes in some way the Infinity Stones and the fight for the power of the stones. Like, how many pieces of media since Endgame have talked about or like some of them are direct ramifications. That is fine. I don't count those. That needs to happen. That's how you continue the story. But so many times, especially in multiversal stuff, they're always like, we're going to tell the Infinity Saga very briefly in this universe. They did it in MOM. We saw the Titan battle in MOM. And it's like there are literally 10 years prior to that battle that you can talk about, you can show us. Like, why do we just keep coming back here? And then for them to like explore an entirely new universe where literally anything could happen as long as it ties back to the what if moment. We never even had to have an Infinity War type experience, depending on like how that like how the snowball goes or whatever.
Yeah.
So like the fact that they like again managed to center something around those dang 6 stones, and like I love the Infinity Saga as much as the next person, but like we had a real opportunity to do something totally wild here. There are comics that are the Marvel Zombie line. Are you telling me that those have nothing but the Infinity Saga and those two? Like, what are we doing here, folks? Tell me a new story. That's the other piece of it.
You know what's so funny? And I was going to say this earlier, but I feel like now's the time to say it. Somebody commented, and I want to say they commented it on one of our TikToks, but it might have just been on me like being in the world of Marvel Zombies. I'm not sure. I don't remember now. But shout out to this person if you did comment on our TikToks and happen to like follow the show. But they even said they were like, I'm just going to hope that they just threw all the stupid crap ideas that they have into Marvel Zombies and they'll just leave everything else alone moving forward. And I was like, honestly, yeah, like kind of pop off because I do think, you bring up the stones again. Why did we have to wrap it into that? And I get like, okay, whatever. At the end of What If, technically, zombie Thanos appears with stones.
I forgot about that. So I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, but I guess my problem is like they sidelined zombie Thanos for the most part to tell this weird Infinity Hulk story instead. And that's why I was like, wait, we could have been like, it could have been really cool to see how zombie Thanos worked. And instead we got like a half done battle because they realized they had to address it because that's how they would lead to, it's like solving the math problem, but you didn't understand how you did the work.
Yes,
Like, you got the right
when you just
answer.
put the insert, but you don't show you work, and you get half off. This is that moment.
But it's like they sat there and they said, all right, Infinity Hulk. And then how do we get to that? And that is kind of what happened, because it really aggravated me that we had only 2.25 heroes going after Thanos. And I just like, and then, I mean, I did appreciate that instead of continuing with Chadwick's T'Challa, they did have him be a sacrifice and everything. I did appreciate that.
That was a beautiful kind of send off for sure.
And hats off for that. But I just think this, taking that part out, that's not my point is. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I just was like, so you had to half do this to get to here. And like, you could have just had this quick little battle and been like, that's not the plot. But again, you made zombie Wanda like conscious, and then she's conscious enough to make other zombies conscious. And then like, now we just have a zombie horde of conscious zombies. And okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'll be honest, the more we talk about this, the more
I know.
I dislike it, which is
I
like
know,
so
if you
annoying.
guys listen to my reactions, I was like digging it.
I know. I came out of every episode except for 3 where I was like, me, okay.
Well, I was say except for 4 though. You can clearly see by 4 I'm kind of like, no, you lost me. And I hope there's a second season so that I can understand what season 1 was just about.
Yeah, but like episodes 1 and 2, I was like vibing so hard.
Same.
And so it's very frustrating that like now upon actual analysis, it doesn't hold up. Like truly,
it doesn't hold up because it doesn't make sense. And from the get-go, if it doesn't make sense, it can't hold up.
Well, if you don't have a good foundation, then, what are you building your house on? It's a house of straw, house of cards, name a flimsy object. That's what your house is made out of. But, oh, darn, there was a point there. You keep interrupting me when I'm trying to make a point.
Girl.
Look, I don't know. I don't know what is going on today. Anyway, I want to talk about the Nova Corps. Can't remember what my point was. So that was the one part that truly I thought was so interesting. I mean, look, I thought the whole show was interesting. Oh, I remember what my point was. It's not that important, but I will say it. This is a show you watch solely for vibes. You do not watch it to understand. You're like, I am having fun. This is it.
Well, because the more I've understood it, the more I didn't like it. But when I was watching it just for the vibes, I, for the most part, was like, okay.
Yeah, 100%. But the one part that I do want to like dive into a little bit, because I think it's fascinating, and it's like a interesting metaphor for like the human, like how we approach problems. The fact that they thought this was going to be their savior, the Nova Corps coming to be able to help them, and then they were actually the ones like keeping them in, I think is so interesting. What's nice about it is that, and not about their actions, because I think their actions are really selfish and awful. If they truly did have a way to help the people of Earth and were simply choosing to just jail them on a sick and dying planet, that's just crappy. But
we have very different takes on that.
But I guess what I'm saying is like sitting passively and doing nothing when if you have the resources to help is like, that's a choice to me. I think that keeping the Earthlings in there makes sense. You want to corral the infection, but like if you're not doing anything, like that's just, I mean,
I agree, but my tactic would have been very different than helping them.
Would you have just like ended the planet?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are different people.
There were clearly not that many survivors at that point. I would have just called it a day. Like, I would have been
again,
like this.
My point is like, supposedly they had some sort of resource. Like, that was the whole point.
But
don't
who
ask
knew
me
that?
what it is. I don't know.
No, but my point being like, who got that information? Because
it had to have been Captain Marvel before she was zombified, would be my guess. She's the only one who truly understands the scope of like the universe. The one thing I will say before we like go into the whole morality of it all even deeper is I liked that by acknowledging the Nova Corps, they were showing like what is the effect on the universe, right? Like the idea that like, Earth is royally like in a mess right now, but like, did that spread? Are there issues? Because we do have people who are coming on and off planet relatively often right now in the MCU. So like, is it contained to just our planet? Now we know the answer is yes. And so I appreciate like that acknowledgement of like, this universe isn't just Earth-centric anymore. I mean, it is Earth-centric in that most of our stories are told here, but there are still quite a number of stories that we're telling in other locations and throughout the universe. But yeah, that like moral question is super fascinating about like, what do you do, you know, in that situation?
You
I
just
think there's go
open
ahead
such
because
an
you have your
interesting.
thinky face on.
Well, yeah. So wait. No, I'm yeah, as soon as you were like people who are off Earth and all that, and I was thinking like, yeah, like Thanos was technically off Earth beforehand, and like had he gotten out, like they couldn't have stopped him if he used the stones and like whatever.
Right.
Then I'm starting to go down the Infinity War like realm. And Thor showed up with Rocket and Groot, R.I.P. Rocket. And I guess Groot also died, but Rocket was worse.
That was brutal.
That was insane.
I
then
forgot
I
about
was
that.
like,
I think
oh,
I
yeah.
blacked it out.
Know that. Well, everybody's using it as a meme now, so I can't really plug
I
it out.
haven't seen the meme, and that's probably
Oh, it's all over TikTok comments, and it's bad. But then I was thinking, you know, where are the rest of the Guardians? In which case, then I was thinking, how did Tony become a zombie?
I mean,
And how did Strange become a zombie?
I guess it depends like on at what point in it. Like you're assuming, oh, here we go, man.
This is my point. It doesn't make sense and I'm mad.
I don't want to talk
You know
about
what?
this.
If this was any indication of how seasons 2 and 3 of What If were going to have gone, I would have never watched seasons 2 of What If.
Truly. You know what day I'm really looking forward to? The day that we close the chapter of the multiverse saga, because I've never seen somebody screw up a multiversal storyline as badly as Marvel has. And you're talking to someone who, I mean, I've watched the multiverse be done by the CW. The CW did it better. And like, look, no shade to the CW. They've put out some bangers over the years. I'm rewatching Smallville right now, and it is bringing me a lot of joy in my life. So no shade to the CW. But if a television network can do this better, why can't one of the biggest studios and the highest earning studios in the world tell a cohesive story about the multiverse? And it's like every project they have an opportunity to be like, you know what? I know we've messed this up before. I know we haven't been able to land the plane. Every time they're starting basically fresh on this one. They had the opportunity to be like, we get it. We know how to tell these stories. And then they like did this. And it's like, you clearly don't. Like, let's just end everybody's misery, go focus on the X-Men, and just like do something that everybody can understand, because you've made this like unobtainable for even your fans who are like devoted. It is insane.
Well, and I could be overthinking it, but I was just thinking, because you talked about like I like the effects of seeing how it affects the bigger universe, and I agree. And like I said, my tactic if I was the Nova Corps would just have been lighted up like it's as good as
you
done.
and I are such different individuals.
Well, you know what? Like, statistically speaking, what are their odds at this point? You're not even safe in the water. Like, what are your odds of living? It's really like, okay. But, and also, it's one of those things where, like, they're a blip in the universe. Earth is a blip in the wider universe. If they were if this blip was going to threaten the whole universe with something that could kill thousands of millions of hundreds of thousands of whatever people.
You're really good at numbers.
I hate numbers, guys. I hate math. Regardless, it would literally kill and then make them Walking Dead to kill more people. Would you not just kind of, you know, get rid of it? Like, I think the cost and benefit here is bigger. Like, 0.00001% of the universe could kill the whole universe.
No, you have I'm sorry, but like, if you have the resources to help, you have the moral obligation
to.
But listen to me.
Blown Earth out of the entire ecosystem of up there.
Listen to me. You're also like taking it from like where we are now, 5 years into the apocalypse. Like when
we don't know how long they've been containing them.
That is true. That is true. But even if it was a year before, 2 years before, 3 years before, like every year the number of zombies gets more, and it's an exponential, it's a hockey stick, right? Like, because more zombies beget more zombies because there's more zombies. Like, every year is so exponentially higher. So for the year, every year that you're like there sooner, or that you're there, you could have been saving that many more people and like had that much higher of a chance of success of exterminating the zombies, but then also the infection itself. So like, you know what I'm saying?
I feel like when the heroes started dropping, it was game over anyway. If I'm gonna be like Hawkeye or whatever, you know, like he'll shoot some arrows, but like, you know, when Captain Marvel dropped, I would have been a little like, oh, ooh, or like the second Wanda dropped, I would have been out of there. No.
I
So
mean, again, we're just different people,
I
and we
just think
approach
I get it
problems
though.
differently.
Like I get it. And again, we don't actually know if they had the capabilities of helping. We
Right.
like actually don't know if that was true.
Right. My point is, I think if you know you have those resources,
But
I
what
think
if they didn't? Because
if
we
they
don't
didn't,
know that they
then
did.
I don't think that your solution is necessarily wrong. You are condemning hundreds of thousands of still living people
There are definitely not hundreds of thousands of people still living
on
on
the
that Earth.
entire planet. On the
No,
entire planet.
girl. No. Did you see that zombie army? And that's not even completely full of just Wanda's followers.
I would have to think that on the entire planet there were
No shot.
a lot of people. You are whatever the number, you are condemning those people to death, which is, I personally would not want that sitting on my conscience, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, I could see the logic behind it, but I personally could never be like, go pull the trigger. I would just continue to contain.
But the thing is like, I guess what, for me, up until they flew their ship up there, they didn't even know there were survivors.
How do you know
Like,
that?
We don't, but you don't know that they didn't either. Like, you don't know that they did or did not know if there were survivors. So theoretically saying at that point, they were just sitting there trying to contain it, just God forbid, in case Captain Marvel breaks loose or, you know, Wanda does whatever Wanda does. And so, like, I guess I just sit there and what I see, like, oh, being guilty on your conscience, but like, again, for the greater good of the entire universe, my thing would be this is the only way to 100% protect it, because the second Icarus falls, they're done. Or the second Wanda gets all that power, they're done. They're not going to be able to defeat either of them.
I mean, look, we are literally playing out, like, isn't it the train moral dilemma where it's like, do you hit the one person or do you hit the group or whatever? Like,
I was going to say it's reminding me of something, but
yeah,
I
think it's
in
like the
this
train thought
case-
experiment.
Well, I think in this case, to me, I think you to ensure that other people that this does not spread, because here's the thing, if it was just Earth without specifically Wanda or Captain Marvel, I maybe could have gotten behind justifying trying to help. But when you know you have at least 2 threats, if not more, because we aren't saying even if a zombie gets in a spaceship, like that's a completely unrelated possibility, but you have at least 2, and as of right now, I would rank Captain Marvel higher than the Scarlet Witch, because she does not have the power. One, she's not the full Scarlet Witch yet. And two, she doesn't have the power of Infinity Hulk. So I would
Right.
say your bigger threat is Captain Marvel, who like willingly can
Agreed.
literally just fly at any given time.
Agreed.
You know they are contained within there. And I think knowing that they are the threats they are, and especially Captain Marvel, how quickly she could go about spreading that virus if she breaks loose. I think you have to sit there and just be like, this is the only option to genuinely keep the rest of the universe safe.
I see the logic. I do.
I'm just saying.
I personally just could not make that call. That's just me.
I would not want to die by zombie infection, and therefore I would be pushing the button.
All right. Well, we are firmly sitting on 2 different sides of this moral dilemma, but it's a fascinating, like, that's such a thought-provoking conversation that they brought into this. Like, they didn't have to include the Nova. Like, they could have had Kamala trying to accomplish some other goal or reach a PIM lab or some sort of secret shield facility that, heck, Fury probably saw this coming a mile away and had stuff for this. Like, that man was planning for every contingency possible. You're telling me that it's some secret shield facility somewhere he didn't have something? I'm not saying he did or didn't, but like that could have been what they chose to do. And instead, they decided to go with this Nova Corps perspective or route, whatever, and not only acknowledge the wider universe, which, like I said, I really enjoyed, but also then start this conversation about like the moral dilemma of like, well, what do you do? Do you stay passive? Do you help? Do you, to your point, just completely end the threat? Like, it's a very interesting conversation, and obviously there's different perspectives for how to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I get the Nova Corps' intentions. And again, I think a lot of this does go back to that question too, though. Like, did they actually have a solution? And who said they did? Who said that they could help them? Like, I think the basis of that being unclear is why it's a lot easier to have that conversation. Oh gosh, what?
No, it's okay. What would be crazy? The whole reason they're there and they know what's happening on Earth is if that beacon was already used to call them, they figured out what's happening on Earth, and now that's why they're surrounded. Like, it's kind of like the idea, I'm gonna like butcher this, but like, how in Interstellar, it's kind of like a circular narrative. It's been a really long time since I've seen that film, but like because of like space, time, whatever, physics, it's like almost like circular. That's actually not a good example, but like, how like I was trying to make it work, and then I was like, actually, I feel like the physics is just not there for me, and I actually understood base level physics, but
I never took physics, so
yeah, well, I definitely wasn't doing quantum time travel physics. I can tell you that right now. It was like the basics of motion.
You weren't?
No, not in my high school physics class. I wasn't. But like, those movies where like you find out that like it's already been done, like they've already like. Oh, I'm not explaining this well, and like I realized that in real time, and it's so annoying because I'm trying to make a point. But like, the idea of like, oh, I'm trying to find an example, like a concrete example that will help illustrate where like a hero, okay, I'm just gonna like go in broad terms. A hero is on a path and they like think that they're the first one to try to accomplish the goal, only to find out that like others have done it, and it
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Which part?
The time travel part. Are you trying to go in that direction where they're like,
no,
they find out they throw the stone to kind of keep?
No, it's not the same person.
Well, then now you really got me. I don't know. That was where I thought you were going.
No, it's not about time travel. It's about the idea that like basically they had predecessors who had tried to do the same thing and then found out that like there was a flaw or someone was like betraying them.
So you're saying the Nova is there because somebody did get it up to space and called them in.
And instead of helping, they formed the blockade. Like, I think, like, in my headcanon, that's
Girl,
actually...
that was all you had to say. That you made that so complicated.
I was really trying... Like, okay, here's the problem. You know when you, like, have a reference on, like, the tip of your tongue and you, like, know that there is a reference that you've seen that, like, is perfect for this moment, and then you were just trying so desperately to figure it out, and you're just, like, gibberish in the meantime while your brain is working overtime. That's literally what was happening to me. Anyway, to Katie's point, what I was trying to say is it, to me, is actually super fascinating if someone previous to Kamala had already gotten it out to space, called the Nova on the frequency, because we know the frequency works, and that's actually why the blockade exists. I think that's kind of like a fascinating, I don't know, like, double betrayal is the wrong term, but like this idea that like there have been others who have tried and attempted to fix the situation, and it's like this cyclical thing. Like, if Kamala were to fall to zombieism, I'm making it a new word, if Kamala were to fall to zombieism, is there someone else who's going to find it in the future and then do the exact same thing, only for the Nova to tell them to come back? I think that's just sad.
I think you're right in the concept that there could have been somebody before, but I think when you were kind of like, oh, it's kind of the betrayal. I don't think so. I think the hope would probably be, I think the general hope is that they would be able to help, and maybe it's just quite frankly as easy as they can't. Like there isn't a way to help. Or they could be trying, but until they're able to figure it out, their best case scenario is keeping everything contained, even if they are like they're survivors, but like what are they supposed to do? They can't. The threat of these survivors is just as imminent as the possible threat of a zombie. They don't know that they're healthy. They don't know that they're not carrying things. They don't know how contagious it is or isn't per se. So they don't know if there's remnants on the ship, could that make somebody sick? Like there's no telling. So I think maybe for the benefit of the Nova Corps, maybe they are working on a cure. Maybe they're trying to figure it out. Maybe they are doing research, but unfortunately, that just takes the time that it takes. And they're just, in the meantime, the blockade is up because they were called. Somebody got them there, but they can't solve the problem right away. And they're just working on trying to get there and hoping and not everybody dies before then.
Way to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, you helped me get there. It took you a little bit, but you filled in some of the blanks of how we could make the Nova not seem. I mean, either way, I don't think the Nova is doing anything wrong. I would have done the same thing if I was a neighboring country and something wild was going on. I'd be like, "Ooh, cut that off!" Like, no, I don't need that to affect my people or everybody else. Like, this is actually sounding a little reminiscent of COVID.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I personally am like getting like early 2020 flashbacks.
Yeah.
I don't know why the idea of this like really depressing circular narrative of failure is fascinating to me. And I know Marvel would never do that, but like I think it's very interesting like if it were to be this like idea that like every hero falls but then the next hero takes up the mantle and just like continues to try to like, because the knowledge that the Nova's there but not actively helping is never passed down. Like there's something like really melancholic but like also interesting about like a new person taking up the mantle only to find out that there's a quote unquote betrayal to come back down and then eventually get
They're
bitten
running
by
out
a
of
zombie.
heroes.
Yes, true. And obviously they would never do that. It's one, depressing, and two, like you're telling the same story over and over again. But like if we were going to go like art house, like let's talk about human nature or whatever beyond just this question about the Nova Corps, you could do that and be like, we're just going to tell this narrative of just like eventually someone's going to break the cycle. I don't know. That's just interesting. I also am still desperately trying to figure out what my reference is, and I can't think of it, and it's really going to bother me.
Yeah, I have no clue what you're trying to reference. And like I said, the direction I thought you were trying to go
was like the Time Turner, but no, that wasn't it.
Yeah. Which don't get me started on that because
it still doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It does not work.
But
sorry.
At least they only did time travel once and said we're never touching that again.
Yeah, this is why like I don't mess with time travel. Between that and like Marvel and like other things, like even The Flash, I had just said the CW did it well, but like they did the multiverse okay. The whole time travel thing, I was like, this is where I have stopped watching for the plot. I am now here for the vibes until we're done with time travel. Then I will come back for the plot. But you intermix time travel for me and I immediately sail away. Not my vibe.
Yeah. Nope. Agreed.
Alrighty. I think this was it for me. Are you good on Marvel Zombies?
I'm good.
All right. This was it for our coverage of Marvel Zombies for now. We will, of course, be covering on Sister Scoop if they do officially announce a season 2. It's been heavily hinted at. Obviously, they left it on a cliffhanger. Wouldn't be surprised if that announcement comes in the next month or so, but make sure that you're sticking with our Sister Scoop weekly episodes because we will, of course, cover that if and very heavily when it is announced. Please make sure that you are subscribing on your podcast platform of choice for our longer episodes, our audio-only episodes. Sometimes we intermix some video like this one. You can check out our website and also our Buy Me a Coffee links down below if you're interested in checking those out or potentially supporting the show.
You guys can also give us a follow on all of our socials. We named a few at the beginning of the episode, but they'll all be linked down in the show notes below. So go ahead and give us a follow to keep up with us there as well. And to get some fun videos like we just did with Marvel Zombies as we do an episode by episode reactions. And make sure you guys are coming back next week as we have a new podcast episode, as usual, back on our weekly cadence. And as always, Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.